this is a true story. And this happened to me when I was 8 years old. I'm now 28, with 3 kids of my own. It happened in my hometown of Soak Village, Illinois, which is known to be a place that Indians pass through, using South Trail to get to other destinations. At least, that's what the official story is. There are others, like myself, who believe more. We believe that Indians actually settled there, if only for brief periods of time. There's always been talk of bones being found when a pool is dug up or a garden was put in, but most say it's just that. Talk. Not me. I believe it. I also not only believe, but know that the ground the Soak Village is residing on is sour, cursed, beyond anybody's wildest dreams. And I have many stories to support that belief. But for now, I will start with my first story of proof. It was a cold, normal night in the season of autumn, cold enough to keep you inside your house and snuggled under a blanket. I was doing exactly that. An 8-year-old can only do so much during these times, and I chose to do my homework so I could read later. I'd been listening to a Rick Springfield album on 8-track. I was playing it on my 2XL robot toy. This was a toy that you could put 8-track cartridges in that was made by the company to be a sort of trivia game. You'd play the cartridge, and it would ask you questions and tell you jokes. It had 2 big red robot eyes that flashed red when you were correct. It had 3 buttons you could push to answer your questions. 2XL could also play normal 8-track music, and of course, its red robot eyes flashed in time with the music. So it was doing exactly just that on that cold autumn night, flashing its eyes to Rick Springfield, and I was quite contented. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor of my house and faced north, along with my bed. I had a window north of me and east of me. Of course, it was dark outside, but it was so warm inside and so very comforting. Every now and again, I'd look up from my homework and just look out into the darkness. No reason. It was just something I did. Well, this was the last time I ever did that again in that house. As I was sitting there, all of a sudden, I felt instantly cold, and every single hair in my body was raised. My blood felt like it had ran cold and decided to just stop pumping through my body. My heart was racing. I was perfectly terrified, and I didn't even know why. Yet, my 2XL was suddenly stuck, and it kept playing the same verse from Rick over and over. Hole in my heart. And its eyes weren't flashing anymore. No, they were just burning bright red, blood red. Then I felt this magnetic pull, like something was pulling me to my right. I turned my right head and looked out the east window and saw something that haunted me for the rest of my life. Sitting just barely outside my window, levitating, was the most horrifying image I'll ever see in my life. A creature about 2 feet tall, but sitting Indian style. His skin was snowy white, and you could see the outlines of his bones because he was that skinny. He wore some sort of white cloth draped sideways on his body. This is why I later named him Gandhi Monster. My young mind thought his skinny body and his white cloth looked like the real Gandhis did. This creature's head was too big for his body. His 2 horrible, big dark eyes were piercing my soul as he stared at me. He opened his mouth and grinned a grin at me that haunted my dreams for years. His mouth was full of long, snarly, razor-sharp looking teeth, dripping with blood. I don't know how a mouth could fit so many nasty teeth into it, but it did. I watched as the blood dripped from his teeth and slid down his chin and onto his white cloth diaper shorts. He raised his hands and reached for me. The fingernails were at least 4 inches long, gnarled looking, and sharpened to points, also dripping with blood. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I was locked into place by his piercing eyes. I couldn't breathe. I felt as if my brain was being scrambled and my soul was being raped. His grin became larger, and he opened his mouth wider. He kept looking at me, as if he knew me, as if he had been waiting for me. He started to lift his arms, and it looked as if in seconds he would actually be inside my room and not just outside my window. All traces of reason disappeared, and my mind snapped. I still don't know how I did it, but I managed to tear my gaze away and leap off the bed and out my bedroom door, screaming with every inch of my soul, all in like 2 seconds. I could feel him pulling me. I could feel that horrible stare penetrating my back as I screamed down the hallway to my mother. Of course, when her and my father and younger brother came back, it was gone. But they knew I saw something, and they did not try to tell me it was my imagination. They comforted me and taped up all the windows in my room. They actually had to pull down all the shades and seal all sides with duct tape. I couldn't even sleep in that room for almost a year. My brother even remembers coming into the room with my parents afterwards. The Gandhi monster was a story we didn't often tell, but it always brought fear to speak of it, to us and to others. My parents never spoke of it again either. As I grew up, I tried to face my fear and sleep in that room, but never did I sleep with my back to a window. Never. 18 years later, I moved to Florida with my own little family, and I found peace within myself. But I'll never manage to forget that creature, and I'll never sleep or sit with my back to a window, and I will never forget the one thing I heard it say to me in my mind as I was running out of my bedroom door. Someday, I'm coming back. Hey, I'm in my mid-teens, and I've experienced ghostly encounters. The one that really freaked me out was when me and my family moved to Scotland. For a few months, we lived in chalets. Me and my older sister shared one on our own. A few weeks after we moved in, we began to feel uncomfortable and felt as if we were being watched there, and there was also a threatening atmosphere. We told our parents, and they said it was just because we were next to the graveyard. A few weeks later, I was lying in my bed with the door open when a tall, dark figure stood, leaning over me. I didn't think at that particular moment, but it wasn't until my sister asked me if I felt somebody was in my room the previous night. We started to talk, and she too felt as if somebody tall was leaning over her. I then started to sleep in my sister's room, and the figure didn't return, so I moved back into my own room. But then again, the figure returned this time. It was kneeling beside me. The next morning I told my sister, and again, she felt the presence of a tall man. Our dad told us that the large house next to us was where the Vikers used to stay until the house was sold. One night, my mom came in, and she was holding 2 necklaces with crosses on it. Me and my sister aren't religious, so her mom thought it had something to do with that. So we went to bed, holding the crosses. That night, it was very uncomfortable in both rooms. After that, we haven't felt the presence of the tall man. The figure that visited did so on a few occasions. Each time, it felt as though it was getting closer and more angry. When the crosses were given to us that night, The figure seemed very angry. Its face was literally pressed into mine, and it felt as if he was gritting his teeth at me. My sister also had this very uncomfortable, menacing figure who was pressed into her face. All you could do was hide under the guilt, closing your eyes really tight, and hope you'd fall asleep quick. Since that last visit, nothing has returned, and we've since moved then, and nothing. We don't even use the crosses anymore. Other things that we didn't think of as being connected at the time now do seem connected, such as the chalet that Mom and Dad were in, although the same, was different in feeling. Because Mom and Dad's chalets always had a comfy feeling, yet ours didn't. Whether it was because there was just me and my sister alone in there, and it was our imaginations or not, we don't know. Although in Mom's and Dad's chalet, there was only one more person over there. From the moment we stepped into the chalet, it was always cold, even with the heaters on. Plus, there was often a bad smell wafting around, a lot like fish, rotten. This was only in my bedroom, possibly me, my sister says. Also in my room, there was a strange noise of scratching, as if someone was sketching or writing. This noise accompanied the presence of another figure, smaller in stature and of the female sex. My sister also felt the smaller presence, but not the noise. She only came once, very different, not menacing, quiet in nature, and much older. She was almost a comfort. But it's still not nice to be watched over at night by ghostly figures. It's strange, because we didn't actually see anything, yet you get so much from these feelings, the sex, age, angry, happy, etc. Plus, we get almost exactly the same feelings. But is it just our imagination? Are we certifiably insane? Are we demented? No, we definitely feel we had a visitor. Previous to this experience, my sister had not really believed in it, ghostly visits and such, but now, I think she has had a change of mind. Me, myself, I've always believed. My mom's granddad often visits, a kind presence, bringing good luck, such as when she was having problems. He visits to let us know everything will be okay. He often visited when we were babies, watching over our cots. Our dad also saw what appeared to be him. Whenever he visits, we know him by the distinct smell of putty. He used to repair windows. So really, we are used to the visits, although my sister had never experienced any until now. Unfortunately, it wasn't a happy experience, one not to forget. Happened to surf onto your website, and I just wanted to let you know that I saw Resurrection Mary in Justice, Illinois, back in October of '92. After getting off of work at 3 a.m. from a chemical plant, Whitco Corporation, near 51st and Central in Chicago, I was driving by that particular cemetery at about 3:30 a.m. on my way home from work. Driving by, but initially not thinking much of the sight, as there was a nightclub with women of ill repute nearby. I saw a woman in a light blue or white prom dress, standing by the trunk of what looked like a black park limousine at the front SW Cemetery driveway off Archer Avenue to the cemetery. I slowed down quite a bit to get a better look at the odd sight, but then drove off. I thought it was probably a prostitute with her John. However, looking back at my mirror, maybe a second later, the woman and the limo were gone. Let me reassure you that there was no way that I would have missed the limo driving off in that second that it took me to look back in the mirror. They weren't on the road or in the cemetery because I looked for taillights. The cemetery gates are pretty large, and it would have taken a great effort and time to open both of the cemetery gates for the car to get through. I did not think much of the incident until a few days later. I was talking with some of my employees that lived in the area near the cemetery. Two of my employees mentioned that I'd probably seen the ghost called Resurrection Mary. I didn't much believe in ghosts until that incident, and I'm still somewhat skeptical, but I cannot fully explain what I saw that night. That incident is still vivid in my memory, and kinda creepy to think about it, to this day. Ever since I can remember, I've always had an interest in ghost stories. That is why I'm writing you this letter. No, I don't have a ghost in my house. A friend of mine told me about this place at least 10 months ago. I was so amazed at this story, I asked if he would take me to this place. No one really ever goes there. I guess because it's so creepy and dark looking at night, but during the day, it is okay. Nothing strange happens. Well, first, before I tell you more about this place, let me tell you the story of why it is so unusual. The city is called Lake Forest, California, and they call it Canyon Creek, I guess, because it is nothing but canyon and wide open spaces of nothing but rocks and wildlife. The story goes back 30 years ago, of a lady who was in her 40s. Nobody knew what her name was. She lived alone with her two Great Dane dogs. She was very rich and owned all of the canyon, which is like miles and miles of land. This lady never married and had no children. It was just her dogs and herself. She lived in this trailer park home, and it was not a pretty house by any stretch of the imagination. Well, about 6 years later, the story goes that a police officer got a call about the lady and her dogs. The officer went to the lady's home and knocked at the door, and no one answered. The officer ended up breaking down the door, and what he found next was horrifying. It is said that the officer found the lady dead. Nothing was left but her decaying body, and her bones were visible. Worst of all, laying right next to her were her dogs. They had both died as well. Now, on to the paranormal part. People who have never been to this place don't know what to expect if they come into this place. It's unpredictable. Sometimes, when you go back to the area where she passed, you'll notice paranormal phenomena. Other times, you won't. A man was driving alone on the canyon by himself one night, and the story goes that he saw the presence of the lady standing at the side of the road with her two dogs. The man did not stop at all to give the lady a ride. He just kept going. This other story was told by my friend. My friend told me that his ex-girlfriend and her boyfriend went up there one night to check it out. They stopped where the lady's house was. They were only there about 15 minutes away when they were just talking and listening to music. Then, all of a sudden, they heard a knock on the side door of the driver's seat. They both turned to look, and they saw the lady standing there, knocking on the window. She was dressed in all white and covered in blood. They also saw the dogs nearby as well, far off into the distance, appearing as silhouettes. They sat there in shock for 3 minutes, horrified by what they just saw. For some reason, the lady was still knocking at the driver's side of the window, but in reality, it was really not that long. They both said that she must have been there about 40 seconds. After that, my friend said they never returned back there. That was not the only story that happened to anyone. There are far more. What I would like to know is who is this lady and why is she doing this? There's something more to why she has to haunt people who have done nothing to her. Maybe it is because she does not want anyone on her land that she loves so much. What could it be? Here's my email address. If you have any questions, please feel free to get a hold of me. I would like at least some kind of feedback on this story, Please, I beg you. I'm so confused, and I'm scared. Please let me know what is going on. I find this intriguing. When I was a little kid, I used to attend concerts all the time, especially abandoned ones. When people weren't there, I'd be really afraid and sad, but most importantly, I would not know what to do. I'd comment, like, share, and subscribe, because this is an outro, and everybody talks like this. Hi everybody, it's PhantomOfDarkness here, and I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this great session of ghost stories. I told you, some of them were pretty terrifying, at least for me, so in the comment section below, please just let me know how you feel about these stories. I really like the last one, that was really good, or the first one. I mean, there's a list of stories that you can go off the top of your head and comment below. That doesn't even make any sense, but, you know, I'm authentic. I try to be as uneditedly as possible. That's not even a word. I don't even care, guys. It doesn't matter. But seriously, guys, I welcome your comments. I welcome your suggestions. Really any criticisms, because apparently any video that's a true scary ghost story videos of mine is not unwanted by criticisms. We all want criticisms, especially me. Not really. Makes me cry. Woohoo! That's fake crying. Okay, I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point, but seriously guys, make sure you share this video, make sure everybody knows about it, because without your help, you guys are amazing. Well, without my... I gotta go. Seriously, I don't know what I'm saying ever, and I don't think I'll ever stop. And apparently, people think this is drugs. No, it's not drugs. I just don't know how to talk right. If you're a person who doesn't know how to talk, you can relate to me. But I don't think there's anybody else like me. So, yeah, most of you guys, I understand, but me, no. Okay, bye guys. Love you so much. Just enjoy the video. Bye-bye.